Everybody, thanks for watching. So I'm gonna get right into this. It's very important, a lot of information to get into. So for years, I've been talking about universal law, and I've been talking about how the powers that be have to operate under universal law. So if you don't know anything about astrology, if you don't study the planets and what the constellations are all about, then you're gonna have to take my word for it and fact check later. But it's a lot of information, so I'm gonna get right into it. So understand, for argument's sake, if you want to do anything on this planet and you want it to work, if you want to do anything on this planet that's going to involve the collective energy of the planet, then you have to do so under universal law. So again, universal law, what is that? Universal law is you operating within the law of the universe involving the energies of the planet, the stars, the sun, and the moon, plain and simple. So if you're into astrology, then you understand different planets have different energies. You read horoscopes and talk about what this planet does, so on and so forth. We'll get into that. So in order for you to operate under universal law, you have to operate under the energy that the planets that are in your house involves. So understand, like when you are in a certain house, there are planets in that house. Those planets have different energies that are basically available to you while you are in that house. So you will be affected by the energies of this planet, everybody in a different way based upon your astrological sign or based upon your consciousness, if you understand. Because understand, no matter what, your consciousness will trump all if you understand the energies and you know how to act accordingly. So understand, again, in order for you to do anything involving the collective energy of this planet and having any type of success in what you are trying to do, you can only operate within universal law using the energies that is provided to you during a certain time or age involving the sun, the moon, the stars, well, the constellations, and the different planets, okay? So understand that. So I want you to think about the ancients, the ancestors, and how when we go back and look, we find so many different, carvings of the stars. We find stuff about the planets. They worship the sun, the moon, different constellations. The Bible talks about the heavens being in space. It talks about the heavens being, above. Everything is about space. Everything is about the heavens. So you have to look at the fact that the Egyptians aligned the pyramids with the stars on Orion's belt. We have to look at the 7 churches that's in Turkey that aligns with the stars, the 7 stars in the Pleiades. We have to look at all of these structures around the world that are aligned with constellations, planets, stars, the sun, the moon, so on and so forth. Everything, when you go back in antiquity and look, has to do with space. Plain and simple. There's no way around that. When you look at ancient Egypt, when you look at the Greek mythology, the Greek culture, remember, we're talking about Saturn, we're talking about all the moons of Saturn being Greek gods, and everything is involving the planet. The whole story about Zeus and Jupiter, everything is involving planets. And it's for a very, very important reason, because this is true energy. This is powers. Now, again, this is going to be weird and sound spooky to some of you, but it's going to make a lot of sense. You know how I do videos. So understand that part first. Everything was about the planets, and they grasped the concept that in order for you to have any type of success, you have to act during certain planets corresponding in the house you are in, meaning in the constellation you are in, or in the planetary, let's say, alignment with Earth you are in, and the energies that they provide. So understand, we have holidays, festivals, once a year, every year, to celebrate certain things. And this is what the ancients did as well. They had festivals, they had holidays to celebrate certain things, because back then they understood there is some kind of energy that you can get from this. And you got to think about it today. We look at it today, things like Christmas and these other holidays are simply symbolic to us. We dress up, we do whatever as a symbolic gesture to the holiday. But back then, it wasn't such a thing. You wasn't putting on a costume to impress people or give people a laugh. They did this stuff because they understood there was real energy behind it. When we go back and look at the ancients, When we look at the powers that be during ancient times, all the wars they fought from, Kemet all the way up until, taking control of America, they won those wars, up until that point in time. So all the ancient wars we look at, they fought them, they won, they conquered so many different civilizations, and they were able to do so because they followed universal law. They followed the zodiac, plain and simple. So the zodiac is the key to universal law. The zodiac has the houses of God. The Bible always talks about the house of God, things in God's house, so on and so forth. And, my house has many mansions. This is about the houses that's on the cross of the zodiac. Each house has a different constellation. It represents a different astrological sign, and different planets will come in different houses and provide different energies to different people. And you have a choice as a collective to tap into that energy. So understand, and this will make sense. If you are at the head or controlling the collective energy on the planet, then you can decide whether the energy that you siphon from these planets or this planetary or universal energy is going to go towards something good or bad. That is what it's about. It's about choice, duality. So again, the Bible, as I said, it's all about duality. It's about choice and making a choice. So it's going to be whoever is ruling is going to decide, because we are all in a contract, in an agreement, and we are all agreeing to be under this government, these powers that be. We have given our energy to them without even really knowing. And there's only certain ways you can take energy back. And it's why they seem to always be winning at every step, because we are basically agreeing to let them represent us as an energy. So they are deciding how the energy is going to be used, and they have been using it in their favor for generations. So when you understand that, and again, as I said, it's going to sound a little bit spooky at first, but it's going to make sense. They are taking control of the collective energy that is provided to this planet for many different things, and they have been using it to build what they have built. So now, of course, we take it to the Bible, because the Bible is the key to all of this. It's giving you everything, as I always say. It is giving you the answers, and we're going to start with Moses. Moses represents Aries. He represents Aries. Aries, the ram. We see statues of Moses with the ram's horns holding the Ten Commandments. We know the ram represents Judaism. We see that the Jews blow the shofar. And Moses represents Aries. And we know that Aries is Mars. Aries in Greek is the god of war, and it's represented by Mars. Mars represents war. So understand that. So Moses led the Israelites out of Egypt. And of course, it's all a metaphorical story. And, he gave them the laws. Remember, the Israelites went out, they went to war, they went conquering everybody, beating everybody, winning all those wars. But before that, Moses had to give them the laws. Now, these are basic laws of man, and these are laws of God. Now, a lot of the laws in the Ten Commandments is basic stuff. Thou shalt not kill, steal, this easy stuff we can remember. There are other laws that are laws of God that are different. So you got to remember what was taking place during this time and the symbology. Some of you guys may know, but I'm going to break it down real quick for those who don't, because it's really important to understand what this stuff is really talking about. Now remember, Moses came down from the mountain, and basically God told him to go down there because the Israelites was worshiping a different God. He goes down there and he sees them worshiping the bull calf, and he breaks, the Ten Commandments, the tablets. So, what was that about? Now it says here, Exodus 32, 1-4. And when the people saw that Moses delayed to come down out of the mount, the people gathered themselves together unto Aaron and said unto him, Up, make us gods, which shall go before us. For as for this Moses, the man that brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we wot not what is become of him. And Aaron said unto them, Break off the golden earrings which are in the ear of your wives, of your sons, and of your daughters, and bring them unto me. And all the people brake off the golden earrings which were in their ears, and brought them unto Aaron. And he received them at their hand and fashioned it with a graving tool after he had made it a molten calf. And they said, These be thy gods, O Israel, which brought thee up out of the land of Egypt. So the last part of that is the clue. How would Aaron know what gods brought them out of Egypt? He didn't see the God that brought him out of Egypt. He just said, here's a bull, worship this. You also have to think about, why would the people want to worship something? Do you understand? So you have to think about, as I said before, they worshiped things. They understood they had to worship, or basically channel the energy that was being presented to them during that specific time in order to have success in whatever they was trying to do. So you had these people that's coming out of Egypt, or these people that's wandering, basically, trying to start a civilization, and they understand unless they call on the energy that's available to them, which would be the God during this time, they are not going to have success in what they are trying to do. So understand what it's trying to say. That key is him saying that that's the God that brought him out of Egypt. So you have, Moses come down and sees what happened, and again he breaks the law. The key to this is the very first law. The first law that God gives is, you shall not have any other gods before me. Not that you shouldn't kill or steal. Do not have any other gods before me. You understand? That is the key. But think about it. How could it be any other gods before God? If this is the one true God, what God is before you? What are you talking about? If it's a God before you, then isn't that God? Isn't that God over you? So why would God give a law that's saying you shouldn't worship any gods before me? So that is the key. So when you understand what's being said, it's talking about, of course, the zodiac. Aaron tells them, this is the God that brought you out of Egypt. And as I said, Moses represents Aries. So you guys understand, one, when they got to Mount Sinai, that represents the coming of the age of Aries. The age that they just left is called the Exodus. They were exiting, not just Egypt, but exiting the age of Taurus, the bull. So when Aaron says, this is the God that brought you out of Egypt, he's talking about the bull, Taurus, the bull, a constellation. You understand? So when God, the first commandment he says is, do not worship any gods before me. The God before him would be Taurus. So you got to understand, one, that when we're talking about the zodiac, when we're talking about which would be the heavens and so on and so forth, the planets, those are gods. They're all gods. We understand this is why in Greek mythology, all the planets was gods. They all had powers and so on and so forth. They are all gods. This is what it's talking about. So you got to think about it. Do not have any gods before me. The reason why this is the most important and number one commandment is because you will not have any power worshiping any god before the God that's in the house that you are in. Understand? So they are now in the house of Aries. The planets that are in Aries during this time, or the constellations that are in Aries, or stars and so on and so forth that are in Aries or in that house at that time, is the power they can draw from. They could draw energy only from those. If you draw energy from any other planets or anything else before what's there, you will not have any success. So they wanted to make that important for you to understand. So important that God wrote on some tablets and, Moses broke them. I mean, just think about that. It's trying to stress how important it is to not be in worshiping the constellations or the energies that's before you, because that's breaking universal law or the law of God. So easy to understand when you understand astrology. So you have to think about it. This was Taurus the bull. They are in Taurus when we get the Hebrews. When the Israelites come out and they're on their way to starting, they are in Taurus. So you guys seen, bullfights where they say Toro. This is where they get the Torah, the bull. It's talking about the start, the beginning of Judaism for the Hebrews. So Toro, Taurus, Torah, all same thing. So you have the Hebrews getting this knowledge from Moses. And now they have the understanding that, one, we have to follow these certain rules, which they're giving you the hint they already knew because they wanted to worship something. Just think about that. They just came out of there, they want to worship this God. If the God, you seen Moses part the sea. So obviously they understood it's some kind of power here or something going on. So they wanted to know what it was. They wanted to know what was giving them favor during this time. And hey, Aaron, you his man, give us the God that we're supposed to be worshiping so we can have success in what we are doing. So Moses breaks the tablet. We know the tablets go in the Ark of the Covenant. Remember, as I said, they were going around and beating everybody because they had the Ark of the Covenant. That was the source of their power. Now, as I said, you can only access certain power during certain times and ages, which they were in the age of Aries, and they were able to win because they was worshiping the power of the time or age they were in. So, big key is the Ark of the Covenant. Now, on top of the Ark, you have the two cherubims. And we know God spoke to them from the Ark, from between those two cherubims. Every time he spoke, it was clouds and lightning and thunder and so on and so forth that appeared. Now, they're giving you a description of, the Ark in the Bible, but you have to understand, argument's sake, the two cherubims represents the stars. Remember, Ezekiel, he had a vision about these cherubims, and you have to understand what it's talking about esoterically. So it says here, okay, so it's the previous post, explored the stacks of evidence which suggests that the vision of Ezekiel, one of the most important and most argued over passages of ancient Hebrew scripture, in which the prophet describes a whirlwind from the north and wheels within wheels, and the likeness of 4 living creatures out of the midst of them, is in fact an esoteric description of the awesome celestial machinery which turns the heavens throughout the year, and that those 4 likenesses correspond to the zodiac sign governing the points of the 2 solstices, summer and winter, and the 2 equinoxes, spring and fall. Now I'm gonna skip here. It says, however, in the 10th chapter of Ezekiel, the scripture text uses a different term to describe the subjects of this vision. In addition to talking about likenesses, the text reintroduces them, but this time in the midst of much description of cherubim, or cherubims in the Geneva 1599 or King James 1611 translations, while still referring to the 4 faces and turning wheels. Now, however, there are several verses referring to the carrying of burning coals in the hand, mainly in the hands of the cherubims' hands, which they are described as having under their wings. But again, this is referring to the stars. The cherubims represent stars. We're gonna make that point in a second. But understand, remember, Genesis 1:14 says, and God said, let there be lights in the firmament. Understand, lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years. This is astrology is talking about, clear as day. This is what they are supposed to follow. This is all important. It's leading up to everything. Just, be patient. So now we all know we find the Ark, or the real Ark, in Kemet. So we found where they stole the design for the Ark of the Covenant in Kemet. But on top of that Ark, we see Anubis. And Anubis is the key. So they're giving you, they specifically made sure they mention the description of the Ark of the Covenant and what's on top, being the cherubims. So when we go to Kemet and we see that Ark, but we don't see cherubims on top, naturally Anubis is the key. So now Anubis is the dog star. Anubis represents the dog star. He represents Canis Major, Canis Minor. So there's only one thing in that area that fits exactly Ezekiel's vision, and it's called Procyon. Procyon is a star or a sun that is bigger than our sun. And when you look at it at certain times, it looks like it has spinning wheels. It is the only thing that fits Ezekiel's vision. But they are giving you that clue to show you that when it's talking about cherubims, because they related it to the cherubims, it's talking about stars. It's important. So, as I said, they described these wheels. Now, it's a company called Procyon. They manufacture synthetic rubber bonded wheels. So God talks to them from the top of the Ark of the Covenant. And as I said, every time he talks, there's thunder and lightning and everything like that. Clouds appear. And as I just said, the cherubims represent stars. So when he's giving you the description of the Ark of the Covenant and how the tabernacle, remember, he told them to build this tabernacle, and that's where it's going to be housed at. And when they give you the description, it says here, this is Exodus 26:1. It says, "Moreover, thou shalt make the tabernacle with 10 curtains of fine twined linen, and blue, and purple, and scarlet, with cherubims of cunning work shalt thou make them." Now understand, when you see the pictures, these depictions of the tabernacle, and look at the sky, those are the colors. Those colors, the purple, the scarlet, the blue, the colors that it talks about represents the colors of space, the colors of the sky. And when you couple that with the fact that we're talking about stars being the cherubims, it's telling you clear as day that the Ark of the Covenant represents the sky. It represents the zodiac, plain and simple. That's what it represents. The reason why they won is because they followed the zodiac, and that's the key it's giving you. So you had the Hebrews walk around, as I said, they won all their battles, they fought, as long as they followed the zodiac, as long as they followed God's commandments, which were in the Ark of the Covenant. And as long as they had the Ark of the Covenant, they won. They won the wars. So here's what you got to think about. You have the Hebrews fighting, winning these wars, right? Let's go back real quick and think. You had the very first commandment, as I said, do not worship any gods before me. Moses broke the tablets when he found them doing that. So they will not get punished. There won't be no repercussions or anything as long as you're following those commandments, right? So it's showing you that it was so important for them not to break the first commandment, right? So, or any commandments, any laws of God. So if Moses was so pissed that they broke a commandment, came down there, they broke a commandment, that he broke the tablets that God wrote on. Think about that. That's trying to really emphasize how important it is not to break that one, but don't break any laws of God. So they were winning because they wasn't breaking any laws. So think about it. They're going around, they're winning all these wars, right? What are the other commandments that's on the tablet? Don't kill, don't steal. If you follow my Bible series, you understand exactly what they were doing. They were going out with the Ark of the Covenant, breaking every single law on the Ark except for the first law. Remember, they had the Ark. They was going into civilizations. They was killing those people, murdering kids, and taking everything they had and dividing it up amongst each other. So they were breaking God's commandments. But why didn't they get punished? Because they were doing it under universal law. Plain and simple. They were doing it while carrying the Ark of the Covenant, which the Ark of the Covenant represents the zodiac, which represents the power they were under during that time. And you can use that power to do good or evil as long as you do so under that power, which is under universal law. How is it they killing and murdering kids? You see how it makes sense now? Because they were under universal law. I told you guys before, there's universal law and there's man's law. A lion can go out and kill a baby buffalo right in front of his mom. It's not going to be no police that's going to come and arrest that lion. That's nature, we say, but that's universal law. They're going out and killing and murdering, and we saying they're doing so in the name of God. They're doing so because God said they could do so. God is the zodiac. God is universal law, and all things are possible under universal law as long as you abide by those laws. So because they had the zodiac or the Ark of the Covenant, they were able to go out and do what they were doing and conquer and win those wars because they were following universal law. Remember, every time they got punished, every time they got conquered or killed, what did they do? It was because they was worshiping other gods. Every time. It wasn't because they was killing. It wasn't because they were stealing. It was because they were worshiping other gods. Whenever God came down there or sent somebody to conquer them or what have you, it's because they were worshiping other gods, breaking that first commandment, which is using things outside of your power, the energy that's provided for you, worshiping other gods. So think about it. All the other people that they was going out and killing in the Bible was because what? They was worshiping other gods. And they were able to beat them because they wasn't using the power that was available to them during that time, because either they didn't have the knowledge of it, or because they was worshiping the wrong energy at the wrong time, or tapping into the wrong energy at the wrong time for whatever reason. But it's giving you that understanding that that is what it was. You got to go back and think about why people would want to worship something just out of the blue. Like, we need to worship something now. Give us something. And we're trying to start a civilization here. We need to understand what power is available to us. Who's the God that's available? Who's the God that's here? Who's the God that's in our house that we can draw this energy from? And he gave him Taurus, but he was wrong. It was Aries. But it's just, as I said, a hint to telling you what this is all about. So another story, Constantine. And this is the same story that they're trying to give you with the inception of Christianity. We're talking about before the inception of Judaism, beginning with this story in Exodus that's trying to give you the zodiac and tell you that the power is in the zodiac and God is the zodiac when you try to understand. So you have Constantine, remember, broke this whole thing down in my ancient history series. Constantine, who was a pagan, who basically, nothing wrong with being pagan, by the way, he basically said that, he went to sleep. Jesus came to him and told him to use this sign to basically win the battle. So he had a battle for who was going to be leading Rome, and it was between him and I think it was Antipater. So he put that sign on the shield of his army, and they won the battle of Milvian Bridge because he put that sign that Jesus told him to put on his shield. And you guys know this is the sign that he put on there. So you got to understand, one, this is an ancient pagan symbol, plain and simple, that represents the zodiac. That's what it's about. It's the zodiac. Now it says here, it's the Chi-Rho. So I'm going to go down here. It says, before it became the monogram of Christ, the Chi-Rho was the monogram of Kronos, the god of time, and an emblem for several solar deities. Chi-Rho is also the origin of the tradition of abbreviating Christ and Christian and Christmas to X, the small letter in the image R, the Alpha and Omega. So we know God is the sun. Plain and simple, one of the powers, the main power of the zodiac. We have the disciples of Jesus, represented by the 12 signs of the zodiac. Power is talking about all of this astrology, as they've been saying to us for a long time. But a lot of people understood, but we didn't see, or we didn't know that these things correspond to real, actual things and events, as I'm going to get into, and that this is real stuff right here. And when you understand how they correspond with major events and things that happen in our history, you'll understand. But it's talking about, the zodiac. And it's giving you so many different clues in the Bible that God is the zodiac, that God is the sun, and so on and so forth, and that the power is in that zodiac. So we look here. This is Psalms 19, 5 through 11. It bursts forth like a radiant bridegroom after his wedding. It rejoices like a great athlete eager to run the race. The sun rises at one end of the heavens and follows its course to the other end. Nothing can hide from its heat. The instructions of the Lord are perfect, reviving the soul. The decrees of the Lord are trustworthy, making wise the simple. The commandments of the Lord are right, bringing joy to the heart. The commands of the Lord are clear, giving insight for living. Reverence for the Lord is pure, lasting forever. The laws of the Lord are true. Each one is fair. They are more desirable than gold, even the finest gold. They are sweeter than honey, even honey dripping from the comb. They are a warning to your servant, a great reward for those who obey them. Job 38:31-32, it says, can't thou bind? And this is when he's talking to Job, basically cussing him out, saying, can you do this? So it says, can't thou bind the sweet influences of Pleiades? That's a star system. Or loose the bands of Orion, a star system. Canst thou bring forth Mazzaroth in his season? And Mazzaroth is the zodiac. Or canst thou guide Arcturus with his sons? Which Arcturus is this. If you go to the ESV version, it says Mazzaroth, and it says, in their seasons, or can you guide the bear with its children? What is it talking about? It's talking about Ursa Major and Ursa Minor, which are the bear constellations. Plain and simple. These are all constellations it's talking about. If it's God that's doing these things, it's talking about God in the zodiac, not God, this being. And it's giving you astrology, giving you the hint that this is the power, this is what it's talking about. So we see all throughout the Bible references to constellations, references to stars, planets, so on and so forth. Saturn is in the Bible. We've seen the Pleiades is in the Bible. It's talking about Orion in the Bible. It's talking about the sun and the moon, and everything is in there pointing you to astrology. Stuff that you guys understand by now, but it's important to understand what it's going to couple with that I'm going to show you guys in this video. So as I said, each planet has different powers, different aspects. And you guys who read horoscopes and stuff like that understand that it's giving you a lot of times what your day is going to be like based upon those planets and the power that it's putting out, the energy that it represents. And there's so many other things that come into play: degrees, position, so on and so forth, the sun, the direction that it's in. There's a lot of stuff that comes into play. It's not easy to just read it based upon what somebody wrote, online. It's a lot of other things that come into play that will determine how those energies will affect you. And if you understand this stuff, then you know what energy is out there for you to tap into and how your day, year, whatever you're trying to do is going to go based upon those things. So I want to give you, as you can see floating through the screen here, the different planets and what they represent, but I want to trigger on a few of them that I'm going to read real quick that is very important that we all need to understand. And that is Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Pluto. These planets are very important. Let's start with Mars. So it's a planet of action, sexual drive, aggression, raw energy, losing your shit on the next person who triggers you. Naturally rules Aries, as we know. So, wild and fiery, Mars, named after the god of war, is determined, driven, and full of raw, unbridled, animalistic energy. Mars represents how we might fight and assert ourselves, explains McGarry to Bustle. The so-called red planet certainly lives up to its name with its red hot intensity and passion. And you may have heard men are from Mars, women are from Venus, right? Well, we actually all have a nice balance of both. So while sexy romance is Venus territory, Mars rules over our more animalistic sexual drive and desire. Venus is the butterflies in our stomach and emotions, while Mars is the primal physical instinct. Jupiter, planet of good luck, abundance, optimism, expansiveness, that's important. Everything coming up roses and then some. Naturally rules Sagittarius. Love us some Jupiter, as the saying goes. The bigger the hair, the closer to God. And in this case, the bigger the planet, the closer to sweet, sweet harmony. Jupiter is considered especially auspicious, bringing growth, positivity, opportunity, and good vibes along with its massive presence. Jupiter, the greater benefic, represents luck, growth, travel, philosophy, education, teaching, and expansion. Stardust tells Bustle this big boy is a spreader of positive and good cheer, so embrace Jupiter's peachy vibes whenever possible. Saturn, Capricorn, its function, discipline and commitment, Saturn is the solar system's taskmaster, known for sending major challenges your way, but for your own good, of course. Your Saturn return is to blame for your quarter-life crisis. And we know Saturn is supposed to be Satan. He blames Satan for everything. But whenever you're feeling particularly put out by a hard situation, it's usually Saturn's doing, forcing you to work through the tough stuff to become a better person. Uranus, planet of originality, awakening, progressiveness, revelations. Letting your freak flag fly while marching to the beat of your own drum. Naturally rules Aquarius. That be me. Expect the unexpected with Uranus, as this planet is all about shaking up the norms. Remember this. This progressive, forward-thinking, hyper-creative, but also prone to abrupt shift and changes, Uranus is considered the Great Awakener, as it shakes up the world through revolutions, technological and innovative on a global level. Stardust tells Bustle Uranus doesn't care about tradition for the sake of nostalgia. It cares about being innovative, fresh, and unique. In fact, this planet is sometimes likened to a lightning bolt, giving the way it shocks us with sudden insights and inspirations. Pluto, planet of transformations, the underworld, the subconscious mind, power, hella deep, intense shit, basically. Naturally rules Scorpio. Pluto may have been robbed of its planethood by scientists back in 2006 for a reason. A harsh move indeed, especially to the planet named after the ruler of the underworld. But in astrology, Pluto is as planet as can be. As McGraw tells Bustle, Pluto encompasses the energy of transformation. Transformation covers a lot of ground. Think the energy of light and darkness, death and rebirth, day and night, endings into beginnings. As Ann Wells says in the Valley of the Dolls, you've got to climb Mount Everest to reach the Valley of the Dolls. And if the Valley of the Dolls is your inner truth, then yeah, prepare for the exhausting and treacherous but transformative battle that Pluto insists upon, because it's definitely for the ultimate good. So now understand, these planets, as I said, have different energies that they put out. And it's going to make a lot more sense as we go when I really get into how we can show these planets do exactly what they say they do. And it's not no bullshit. So you got to understand, you have different aspects of these planets, and you guys who are into astrology understand about the conjunction and the opposing of planets. So you have planets that are in opposition, you have planets that are in conjunction, and whether a planet is in conjunction or opposition or retrograde and so on and so forth will determine how that power of those planets are basically amplifying that house, or basically contracting from that house. So whether a planet is in retrograde, whether it's in conjunction with another planet or in opposition, will determine a lot of things. And like I said, it's so much into this, and this is sort of a crash course, but I'm going to get into this a lot more in future videos. So you guys definitely want to make sure you're on Merkaba Academy. But let's get into conjunctions, because that's very important right now. Conjunction in astronomy: an apparent meaning or passing of two or more celestial bodies. The moon is in conjunction with the sun at the phase of new moon, when it moves between the earth and sun, and the side turned toward the earth is dark. Inferior planets, those with orbits smaller than the earth's, namely Venus and Mercury, have two kinds of conjunctions with the sun. An inferior conjunction occurs when the planet passes approximately between Earth and Sun. If it passes exactly between them, moving across the sun's face as seen from Earth, it is said to be in transit. A superior conjunction occurs when Earth and the other planet are on opposite sides of the sun. But all three bodies are again nearly in a straight line. Superior planets, those having orbits larger than the Earth's, can have only superior conjunctions with the sun. Conjunctions of planets with one another are considered of great importance in astrology. It says also see opposition. So opposition, all the planets in the solar system orbit around the sun. At certain points during these orbits, the Earth finds itself directly between the sun and another planet. This is the moment at which that planet is said to be in opposition. When Saturn is in opposition, for example, the Earth is between the sun and Saturn from our vantage point on Earth. Saturn is on the opposite side of the sky to the sun. When the sun sets in the west, Saturn appears in the east. Okay, so now let's start getting into some actual things so you guys can understand. One, I wanted you guys to see how, the Bible is trying to give you the understanding of how, the reason why the Israelites were so successful is because they used the power of God, which is the power of the universe, the power of the zodiac. And that's how they were able to go out and win wars and beat and do everything they was doing. If you watch my ancient history series, I showed you guys how the Hebrews is basically the Greeks. Everything that is talking about when you see all these wars is the Greeks, not the Hebrews. There's only one people that fought during this time that is so much history about ancient wars is the Greeks. So when we go back that far, you're going to find the Greeks conquering many civilizations, including, killing their own people during the wars of the Diadochi, as I said. But what really happened is a lot of those guys did come on board and basically join the fold when they understood what was at stake. So again, you had them going out, fighting all these wars, conquering these people. And, the problem with the Egyptians was, as I said, they were so focused on the past. They had no idea they were spiritual people, and they was trying to get back to the spirituality that they once had and get that power that they once had. And I believe at some point they got very close to it. But once the Greeks caught on to how they were in power and how all of this worked, they took over. Now, showed you guys how they used the Persians and how they were able to basically beat the Persians and win all those wars because they had the Ark of the Covenant, which is understanding the zodiac. And if you go back and look at Greek anything, all these Greek wars, all of that stuff is there right in your face. It's all right there. So this is how they were winning. They was using this power, they was using this energy, and they have been using it for a long time. So we had what just recently happened, as I just gave you guys the energies, the powers of these planets. You have to understand that this year is an unbelievable year. And if you're an astrologer, then you understand. If you are into this stuff, you see how crazy people have been going for decades about what's coming, and now it's here. So we had January 12th, 2000, this year, you had the Saturn-Pluto conjunction. Now, this is something that takes place between every 33 and 38 years. And whenever it has taken place, things have happened. So you can correspond world events to these conjunctions. Now, again, a lot of this stuff is going to sound familiar to you guys, but let me get through the whole thing and you can understand. But you got to realize, this is the power they have been using to win, to control the energy of the universe and the energy of us to shape the future that they want. So understand, again, when the Bible was talking about the people, it's talking about in Genesis, when it's saying the people are one, and this they begin to do. Now nothing will be restrained from them, which they have imagined to do, because they were a collective. They were together, and together, if you're on one accord, one voice, one language, whoever's in control, who knows about this power, can control it and use it for what they need to use it for. That was the important part of them gaining control, because if they want to take the world, they have to have collective control of the consciousness of the planet. And as I told you guys, we shape the consciousness. We are the consciousness of this planet, the original man. It don't get no stronger than from us. We use that energy to grow spiritually. The ancient Egyptians used that energy to grow their civilizations. Remember, the Sahara was, fertile when the Egyptians ruled. It had water. It's now a desert. We use that energy to grow spiritually, consciously. And the empires that sprung up in Africa was spiritual civilizations that was drawing on this energy. And when they came and conquered Kemet and conquered these African civilizations in the north and throughout Africa, all the kingdoms that I mentioned in my videos, they changed the consciousness of the planet. We use that energy to what? To stay in harmony with the planet, to stay united. We use that energy to grow consciously, to grow spiritually, to remember who we was. So they came when they destroyed Kemet, they stopped all of that. They changed the consciousness of the planet by going out and systematically destroying many different races of African people. It changed everything. We was a peaceful civilization growing spiritually. They changed it into a civilization rooted in materialism, Saturn. And this is what happened. They changed it, they enslaved us for hundreds of years so we would lose the knowledge on how to channel this energy while it was there. So they wouldn't be in competition with us for the energy. So they enslaved us, they beat us and enslaved us for hundreds of years and used that time to be where they are today. But we gotta look at history. And history is telling us that when these conjunctions happen, they have been able to make sure they have taken advantage of this power and used it to shape history. So this is what happened last time you had a Saturn-Pluto conjunction. So you had 1914-15, we know. We had World War I in 1914. You had Saturn-Pluto conjunct, and we had World War I. Wars. When the heir of the Austro-Hungarian Empire was assassinated. That was June 28th. Now, this is supposed to be the beginning of World War I, and how it was started, but it didn't start until a month later. So this is when we had over 15 million people die during World War I. We're talking about empires that existed for hundreds of years, fell. Think about that, hundreds of years. We're talking about America that has existed, since really the 1700s? It's been, a few hundred years we had America, over 400, 500 years. We're talking about empires that existed that long. We're talking about the Ottoman Empire. We're talking about empires that ruled and seemed super powerful if you were in Europe during this time that fell, and you had new empires rise during this time. So we had this Saturn-Pluto conjunction, and what happened? Mars, the planet of war, passed by Saturn-Pluto conjunction. And Saturn and Pluto would conjunct 3 more times between 1914 and 1915. So on October 4th, you had 25,000 Canadian troops who went into Europe to basically support the war efforts. Turkey had a freaking 7.0 earthquake. Over 17,000 homes was destroyed during this time. November 1st, 1914, you had the Battle of Cornell, May 1915, Australia and New Zealand all but ended the Ottoman Empire. So during this time, we had, war. In this time frame, we had the Armenian genocide. We had the American occupation of Haiti, the Mexican Revolution, and the opening, remember, of the Federal Reserve Bank. Everything I just said happened between 1914 and 1915. So this was during this energy. So if you're trying to understand how, so many things were happening around the world, and when we go back and look, it's nothing but war. It's just war, depression, recessions, and so much bad stuff that had to happen for them to shape what's coming. So the only way they can get this stuff to happen and make it happen was to basically use these energies. And I read to y'all, if you want to go back and look and read the energies of Saturn and Pluto. Saturn kind of sort of, messes with your money. It kind of sort of puts a hold on, kind of lessens a little bit what Pluto is trying to do. It's like, we're going to do this, but we're going to do this more smoothly than you trying to do it. It don't have to be blood and guts. We can do it smooth. Instead of blowing their brains out, just point the gun and say, give me your money. You know what I'm saying? That's Saturn, believe it or not. But them two together is totally different. Remember, this is a conjunction. So really, there's so many other things that come into play now. Degrees, direction, position, so on and so forth. That's going to decide what the outcome or what's going to happen during this time they are in conjunction. So now we have the next Saturn-Pluto conjunction. It was in 1931. This happened in the signs of Capricorn and Cancer. 3 times again, February 17th, July 8th, and December 13th. Now remember, this was at the height of the Great Depression, 1931. This was at the height of the Great Depression. It was millions of people was unemployed and homeless. The industrial factories basically was, almost closed and gone. They wasn't producing as much as they was before. Farmers, they was losing business. And this is when FDR was elected, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And this was after World War I, 1931. World War I ended, and remember, Germany was forced to pay reparations to France and Britain. And this put the German people in an economic bind. It was in a lot of economic trouble, which this sparked Adolf Hitler to blame the rich Jewish bankers and business owners for the troubles that the economy was having. Now remember, Capricorn and Cancer, they deal with economic trouble. When Saturn is in Capricorn, it puts a limit on wealth. Remember, we also had World War II, and a lot of people would tell you, even though there wasn't a conjunction around World War II, World War II was really a continuation of World War I. There was so much going on. Remember, even though what happened to the Germans happened, they were seemingly defeated, but really there was just, they had to relight those engines, and Hitler was that light. So we know, World War II, we had, 65 million people killed. We dropped an atomic bomb. We had Pearl Harbor. So much happened. All those people lost their lives at Pearl Harbor. We had the internment camps here in America where it was locking up Japanese Americans and putting them in these camps. So many people died. We had the draft. We had people that had to, go and fight. A lot of people had to go and basically, convert their businesses and their factories to the war effort. So this put an economic stranglehold on a lot of businesses. And the next conjunction was in 1947. This was at the end of World War II, remember, the start of the Cold War. USSR was in power, and you had the 2 superpowers basically going at it, USSR and America. So we also had, remember, the Chinese Civil War in 1947, which basically ended in the revolution in 1949 with the Mao communist movement. So we had next in 1965 or 1966. You guys understand what was happening during that time. But it wasn't a conjunction of these planets. It was an opposition of these planets. We had April 23rd, over 3,000 troops sent to Vietnam. August 17th, remember, Operation Starlight happened. It's one of the major battles that happened there. A lot of people died. We also got to remember civil rights, of course. This was when we had the whole Voting Act passed by Lyndon Baines Johnson. We had Medicaid and Medicare under him. So we know about what was happening with voting rights. We know about civil rights movement and all that stuff that was going on. And we're talking about a time of oppression of Black people, which of course we are still going through. So you had the last conjunction happen in 1982, the year I was born, 1982 and 83. This was the last Saturn-Pluto conjunction. So America was talking about nuclear disarmament. We had the first ever International Day of Peace. Poland ended martial law and released political prisoners. Disney World opened up. We had that 10-week war between Argentina and the UK. This is when Beirut was bombed. Crack cocaine was on the rise. The internet and cell phones was created, as well as personal computers. Now, believe it or not, we had a Saturn-Pluto opposition in 2001, 2002. And we know 2001 was the War on Terror. We know about 9/11. And of course, if you remember, just as we had the opposition back in 1965, the opposition in 2001, the war in Vietnam was unpopular, the war on terror was unpopular, and they both had protests. This is just, not even scratching the surface of how many things happened during this time. These are not the only conjunctions. There's also other planetary conjunctions and things that happen all the time. So I know a lot of you guys who are into this, people who have dabbed into it, is going to say, man, this planetary stuff happens a lot. So, when you think about how many people is on the planet, it would make sense. But when you think about the fact that so many people on the planet, yet we are all sharing the same fates. We are all dealing with the same problems. That shows you that it is one controller, one leader that's using this energy to direct what's happening to us, versus many different civilizations using this energy to do different things based upon their culture and their beliefs, how it used to be. But it's one powers that be, these people, the 1% that is using this energy against us to further their agenda. So now, as I said, January 12th, this year just passed, we had the conjunction of Saturn and Pluto, which, began. And I'm going to get into that in a second, but you got to understand again what these conjunctions represent with these planets. So it says here, it's going to start down here. It says Pluto, on the other hand, is the god of the underworld, the Roman counterpart of the Greek Hades. After its discovery in 1930, it replaced Saturn's place as the furthest from the sun, and with it has seemed to replace Saturn's place as the darkest, most fearsome of all planets. Think about that. It rules death, decay, loss, but with it, transformation and rebirth. It also has associations with underbelly of society, things that are dark and hidden. This includes crime, the most horrific we can imagine, but also the occult and the hidden intentions of our governments and other institutions. As the modern ruler of Scorpio, it represents the power and those who seek it, power for its own sake. When these two planets come together, everything bad in the world seems to be made more intense. Oppression, war, disease, famine, injustice, all of it. The darkness is all-encompassing. We can't ignore it. But on the bright side of things, because we can't ignore it, Pluto's conjunction to Saturn gives us the power to change it. Pluto as the planet of death and decay, and Saturn as the planet representing government, hierarchy, and the structure of society, helps to destroy and with it transform the institutions that are no longer needed, the institutions that harm and process us. When we view things in this light, the Saturn-Pluto conjunction is really about revolution. Things may seem negative at the moment, and let's be honest, they kind of are. But this temporary negativity is necessary in order to rebuild a society that is positive, free, and fair to all. There's more. It says, when Saturn and Pluto meet, they approximately constellate a period of intensified tension, constraint and division, and collective events. While social structures decay and break down, there's room to begin building new forms of fundamental elements in their place. Yet, if we wish to endure the test of Saturn and Pluto, we must descend within to explore our inner shadow and unconscious complexes rather than overly focus on external achievement. In combination, Saturn and Pluto bring the gravity of graveyards and necessary confrontations with cultural and personal issues we can no longer deny or resist. Pluto amplifies the contraction of Saturn, separating the essential from the non-essential. In the face of obstruction, honoring our awareness of whatever we wish to determinately develop with the time and space available to us. Saturn and Pluto have spent 2019 at the end of their cycle that began in 1982-83. As they have moved direct and retrograde within range of a conjunction, they have drudged up old personal patterns and cultural material that we need to address, integrate, contemplate, or clear out. When they form their first exact conjunction at 23 degrees of Capricorn on January 12, 2020, they will initiate a new cycle, which has already happened. This is the old from last year. They will initiate a new cycle, shifting the emphasis into forging new forms of structures that support the purpose we have cultivated. There's nothing easy about dealing with experiences related to Saturn and Pluto, but the cathartic intensity, which cathartic means psychological relief, like, letting out a lot of psychological pain, crying or what have you. But the cathartic intensity they force us to endure aid in developing inner focus, determination, and courage. At times we must resiliently persist in the face of opposition. At other times we must learn to surrender to elements of life out of our control and nurture feelings of grief caused by loss. If we sustain effort through the challenges, by the end of 2020, we will have made significant progress towards major life goals and put new supportive structures in place that will endure for a long time. So now, after everything I've shown you guys of what happened when we had the Saturn-Pluto conjunction in the past, we had January 12th, 2020 this year. On that day, what happened? We had China report to the World Health Organization the first human cases of coronavirus. You see all these charts. The dates start January 12th. Remember, it was talks about it, but then when you had a human case, things start to intensify. That was January 12th, 2020. 2 weeks later, Kobe dies. Remember that. Nobody will ever forget that. There's a lot more things that happen. We're going to get to that later. But April 24th, 2020, Pluto goes retrograde, and the FDA issues new guidelines and responses to coronavirus. 6 days later, Saturn went retrograde. What happened? You had Trump, who had his whole social distancing thing supposed to end, but it didn't. He extended it. And when you look at around that time, we had so many different states pass executive orders. Trump did a lot during this time. So it's things happening with or corresponding with these planets. As I said, we know we had George Floyd, killed in May. We're going to get into all that and everything that's been happening, where we're at right now. We'll get into that in a second. But understand, as I said, it's not just these conjunctions that happen. There are other conjunctions that happen that have other energies that you can tap into, that they have tapped into and been tapping into to, make what's been happening happen. So understand, everything I've, shown you guys so far. They're going to use this energy as they have been using it for years. But you got to understand, this is the only conjunction of Saturn Pluto. I gave you guys, that history, but we're talking about, you're going to have this Saturn Pluto conjunction only this time. The next time it's going to happen is not going to be till 2053, 54. And the next opposition is not going to be until 2035, 36. So whatever they're trying to do to move forward, they're going to have to do within the next, this year and next year. So we're going to see a lot of stuff is going to happen. Now, as I said, there are other conjunctions. When Mars is involved, there's war, things happen. It depends, of course, again, on many different aspects of what Mars is conjoined with. Is it retrograde? What degrees? So on and so forth. So there's a lot of stuff also happening. But understand, this is the energy, the power they have been using for a long time. It's not, I'm really trying to, this is a very hard video to do. And I like to be more on point with my stuff, which I'm going to be able to back this video up a lot more with videos to come. And I got to give you guys sort of a crash course, because I want to get this out the way now, because it's really important. And as the days go by, we don't know what's going to happen. And I want you guys to be prepared and understand and be watching and understanding what this stuff mean and these energies mean. And as I said, I'm going to give you guys a lot of information on that, in days to come. But they're going to be using this. This is what they've been doing. It's just like, you have to be where I am and understanding how so much more that I don't have time to cover corresponds with what they're doing. We got a lot more to get into, which is going to help me pound this point home. Everything they have been doing, everything we have been seeing has been leading up to something, which we'll get into. It's leading up to this point, this major point. And the wars, the oppression, everything, all of it has to do with preparing for what's coming. So you guys are going to have to hold on, for a second. We're going to come back to that. But first, before we do, we have to get into another important part of all this, of course, numerology. And understand the numbers and what that means. So as we have astrology and everything I just shown you guys, equally as important, of course, is numerology. Because while you have the planets and their energies and so on and so forth, there's calculations that must be done. The numbers mean something. As I always said, they have existed before we existed. We did not invent numbers. They have always been, always. So you can call it whatever you want to call it. They will be. We call it 1, 2, 3, 4, so on and so forth. We can call it whatever. It will still be numbers. So we have 9 being a very important number, as we know in numerology. And the 2 most important numbers would be 1 and 9. We're talking about 1 signifying the beginning, 9 signifying the end and rebirth. Plain and simple. There are only 9 numbers, as you guys understand. There's the energy of the 9. So we know 9 does so many cool things, and 9 is just basically in everything. And you have, if we add 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 all the way up to 8, you add them up, they'll equal 36. 3 and 6 is 9. If you do the same thing, 36, 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4, all the way up to 36, it'll give you 666, which will give you 9. 6 times 3 is 18, which will give you 1, and 8 is 9. Also, I don't care what numbers you come up with. Forget 0. Whenever you see a 0, toss it out when 9's involved. It's 0. So no matter what grouping of numbers you come up with, how long it is, it don't matter. When you multiply it by 9, you will always be able to get 9 out of it. It's just the power of 9. No matter what. Any 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever amount of numbers you come up with, multiply by 9, break it down after that. When you finish the breakdown, you will get 9 every time. We know Jesus, 33. 3 times 3 is 9. 9 is the number of the universe. So it says here, what is the definition of 9 in numerology? The energy of the number 9 represents completion, but not finality. Think of it more in a cynical sense. It's about the ending of one cycle and the potential it creates for another cycle to begin. The 9 in numerology acts as an usher in this process of transition or transformation, guiding and empowering us with its wisdom. It absorbs answers from the spiritual source, then delivers them to us in the real world. This number is a humanitarian at heart. It is compassionate, kind, and intent on putting its efforts towards creating the greatest good. The 9 in numerology has gone through its fair share of hardship and is wiser, stronger, and more aware as a result. These first-hand experiences make it especially understanding of others who are struggling and willing to provide viable support. Let's look at the number 1. There is much motivation and momentum surrounding this single-digit number. It is a true pioneer, eager to break ground on new endeavors and pave the way for others to follow. It is a natural leader and a protective force. The number 1 represents newness, movement, and the possibilities that awaits us. In spiritual symbolism, it is the number of creation and the birth of all things, the divine origin of the universe. Symbolically, of course. In numerology, the number 1 is the root of opportunity in our lives. It is a symbol of confidence, power, and action. It pushes us to look at our current circumstances and realize that we have the power to turn them into anything we wish, even if we are afraid. The 1 inspires us to take control of our future and embrace new beginnings. Now, real quick, according to the Bible, number 9 is also perceived as a symbol of patience and harmony, as well as a symbol of development and creation. We need also to have in mind that number 9 is made up of numbers 3 times 3, which means that 9 is a perfect number that can symbolize the will of God. So now when you are calculating the planets in relation to the sun, it's about rotation. It's round. The zodiac is round. As you can see here, at every point on the cycle, you will end up with 9 at all calculations. This again is why the Masons use the square and compass. 9 is again the number of the universe. Remember when Tesla talked about the 432 and the 369, they all give you 9. I gave you guys 1. So of course you have 9 and 1, and we know 911, which 911 is a spiritual number. They call it the angel number. So again, for people who is seeing 911 a lot, You know, I told a lot of people, I get that email a lot from a lot of people. I keep seeing 9/11. I'm also a person who always sees 9/11. And it's like you could be doing something and that you always look at your phone, the TV, or whatever at 9/11. You could be playing Madden at 9/11 on the time for the game clock. You look at it and you see it. You see it all the time. And it's your subconscious, or they call it your angel, your guardian angel, letting you know what you are doing. You are conscious now. You are on the right track. You need to keep going and keep pushing forward and keep basically tapping into what you have been looking for, which is the energy that you want or need to keep moving forward. And, you know, for us who stress this information and we do everything we learn and we put our time and money and effort into getting this knowledge and to growing spiritually, these are the people that are seeing it. And, you know, it's one of those things that spooks a lot of people. But 9 is about, you know, as I said, new beginnings. It's about, you know, pushing forward. It's about, it's time to go. It's time to move. There's a sense of urgency. So you have 9 and twice the power of 1 in 9/11. 911 is not about danger. 911 is about urgency. It's time to go. It's time to move. Now it's the time to start. Push forward. Go. And as I told you guys in the previous video about the Masonic ritual of Memphis Mesrah, which is cutting off the head of the old order so a new order can begin. And that's what 9/11 was about, the signaling, because 9/11 is also about communication. 9/11 was the action to signal to the powers that be and everybody that is Masonic and everybody that has understanding to understand now is the time. This is the time for us to start our actions and put our energies toward the agenda, what we need to do to bring into the fulfillment of our agenda. And that's what 9/11 was about. So when you guys are doing your research on the number 9 and the significance of 9, you will understand, you know, a lot of this stuff and what 9 represents. 9 is also a number of sacrifice. 9 means a lot of different things. So now, this is something many of you may not know. And a lot of people were shocked. I remember my older study groups when I used to bring this up. Every single one of us, all of us, if you were born in the 1800s and the 1900s only, 1800s, 1900s, think about what was going on during this time. We were basically coming into, you know, the, let's just say not new age, but like things were beginning to grow. It's like a new era of progress during this time. You know, the 1800s, you know, we would get steamships and automobiles and so on and so forth. So everybody, if you was born 1800s, 1900s, your number is 9. We are all 9s, every single one of us. And it's very important as to what has been going on and what's been happening to us and how they have been able to do what they have done to these generations of people. It's going to make sense in a second, you know. And no matter how you do it, I don't care what your birthday is, any birthday, when you multiply your month, your day, and your year, it will always be able to break down to 9. And, you know, that's kind of, you know, crazy when you get into the 1800s, but which I'll explain a little bit later. You gotta understand, you know, in some cases, you have to multiply. So you have multiplication and addition that can be used to get 9, but you can always get 9 up until the year 1999. That's when it stops. So it stops, it ends 1999, and you can't do it no more. So a lot of stuff happened. We'll get into this in a second. But you have to think about, you know, why September 11th? September 11th, 2001. You know, they chose that time for a specific reason. One, you have September. And now you have September in the 2000s where you can only get 9 in that month. September is the only month you can get 9 again, right? So you have September 11th, 9/11, 2001. Very important time, of course, as we know. But they wanted to wait until 2001 for a very important reason, and that reason is the purpose and point of this entire video. So you have Jesus that gives us the clue. So understand one, you had, when we first meet the Jews, you have them coming in the age of Taurus. We know Moses signifies the end of Taurus and them coming into the age of Aries. So Aries ends in the Old Testament, and you have Jesus come in with the two fish. Everybody know the two fish? Jesus fish. That, of course, signifies the age of Pisces, which we are still in now, in Pisces. So, of course, as I told you guys before, Jesus represents you. Jesus is us. Jesus is the nines. The 33 is representing that. Luke 22:10, what happens? You have the disciples come and ask him, where shall we prepare the Passover meal? And he tells them to, go into the city with a man carrying a pitcher of water, which we all understand, metaphorically talking about Aquarius. And that's what it's about. So now a lot of you guys understand this, and a lot of people thought that 2012 would be the beginning of the age of Aquarius. But 2012 simply marked 9 years until the age of Aquarius, which is, of course, next year, 2021. 2021, January 20th, 2021, we enter into the age of Aquarius, 2021. So you have to look at everything. Even when you look at Luke 22:10, where he's giving you the age of Aquarius, we know they was in Pisces. They would have to go into, to continue what they're doing, the age of Aquarius. Even when you rearrange those numbers, Luke 22:10, you can get 2021. You look at the fact, as I said, they waited till September 11th, 2001. Why? Because when you add 9/11/2001, you get 2021. Also, if you guys remember, when was the first bombing of the World Trade Center? It was February 26, 1993. You add those, you also get 2021. The key again is Aquarius. Aquarius begins, that sign, January 20th, start of Aquarius. So as I said, we get 9 all the way up to the year 1999, right? So that first sign will be Aquarius. 1999 ends, you have January 20th, 2000. Anybody born on that date, their numbers would be 2021, Aquarius. So you have 1/20/2000 will give you 2021. So there's a lot of things you got to look at that's pointing towards 2021. It's a lot more. And we're the last of the nines, and it has a lot more significance to it than just this. So you have to look at one. Aquarius is the key. It's the key to continuing, understanding the numerology. So when you start to add, as I said, no matter what it is, if you multiply, you'll get 9, any of our birthdays. But if you add, using addition, you'll still get 9 up into the year 1979. So it stops at 1978. 1978 ends where you can add the birthdays of everybody and get 9. That stops 1978. So you have to understand what was taking place around this time. One, you get the fact that 1978 ends what? That is the end of Generation X. That signals the end of Generation X and the end of nines by addition, and we switch over to multiplication in 1979, that begins Generation Y, or the millennials. So you have 1979, and it was this time they're beginning the launch up to September 11th, or up to the new millennium, getting ready for that energy. So you have in 1979, what do you have take place? You have the running for president of Ronald Reagan, versus at that time we had Jimmy Carter in the White House, but Ronald Reagan ran against him. Remember, he was the 33rd governor of California. All Reagan numbers, when you look at them, they all give you 9. If you guys want to do that, but you'll get 9 in all his numbers, including his presidency and him running for governor. His terms, all 9s there. And of course, you know, you had him run with Bush, and you had them two basically, you know, win the election by a landslide. So you had 1979, you had them begin a presidential campaign. Bush during this time was running for president, and you had people think, you know, I guess they felt like, you know, Bush, he was the CIA director. He was known but not as popular as Reagan was. And, you know, a lot of people felt like he wouldn't be able to win against Reagan for a lot of reasons. And remember, Reagan almost beat Gerald Ford, you know, in 1974 for president. He narrowly lost. I mean, Ford just got in there. So people knew if Reagan ran again, he would most likely win. And, you know, he ran and Bush ran against him. And, of course, he lost the primary against Reagan. So you had Bush and Reagan run. 1979, the primary is Reagan versus Carter. And then he chooses 1980 for, you know, he chooses for Bush to be his running mate, his vice president. So in 1980, you have them winning the election by a landslide. It was 489 electoral votes that they won to his, like, I believe it was like 67 or something like that. But it was a landslide. They blew him out of the water. 489, you add them up, you get what? 21. Not a coincidence. 1981, Reagan was sworn in as the 40th president of the United States. If you add 40, you'll get 2021. Also not a coincidence. But you had about 3 months later, Reagan almost is assassinated in March. And had he been assassinated, Bush, the former CIA director, would have been president of the United States. And, you know, you got to remember, there's a lot happening around this time. You know, the next year you would have 1982, the Pluto Saturn conjunction. As I said, the year I was born. And you had a lot of stuff, as I explained to you guys, that took place around this time. So John Hinckley Jr. tries to kill Reagan, who he says that, you know, it was to gain favor with Jodie Foster, who we know now is, you know, a lesbian. He was caught, and like I said, had Reagan died, Bush would have been president. And a lot of people looked at that whole thing, you know, because Bush being the director of the CIA, it's no problem for him to get somebody whacked. And he was trying to run for president in the first place. And we understand why and what they were trying to do when he got in there. So we had, of course, Reaganomics, and we had the Ronald Reagan war on drugs, and he became hugely unpopular, especially with, you know, the middle class, you know, with the working class as well, because he sent, and Ronald Reagan is responsible for destroying the American economy, real talk. He sent so many factories under. He sent so much manufacturing contracts to China. He is responsible, and that was part of his job, of sending and putting more debt on America. He all but completely destroyed, you know, all the factories and all of our manufacturing plants, which we don't have that many, you know, anymore. You know, when Reagan came, they're all gone. You know, Reaganomics crushed everything, and it was about, you know, spending outside of our means and so on and so forth. But you gotta understand, America was a producer. We was making stuff. America was in the process of making a profit. And by him doing what he did, he put more debt on the economy. He put more debt on the American people by making sure that all those factories and all those companies went under. And a lot of people was, of course, they hated Reagan for that. And they try to make Reagan like this great president and all this and that. You destroyed the economy when you really pay attention. You gotta really look at it. So that's why Bush was able to get in there. If he was such a good president, he would have got reelected, but he wasn't when you pay attention statistically to what he did to the economy. So in any case, rigged or not, Bush got in there. So we know September 11th, 1990, Bush gave the famous New World Order speech, and it just so happened September 11, 2001, his son would be the president when 9/11 happened, September 11 happened. So it's not a coincidence. So again, all of that, everything that happened during this time, the wars and everything, all that was leading up to September the 11th. And all of that is in preparation for what is coming January 20th, 2021, the age of Aquarius is what this is all about. And what's going to take place during this time, not just during this time, but before this time, and what's going to happen the rest of this year when we have all these conjunctions and all these planetary retrogrades and conjunctions and oppositions and so on and so forth that's going to take place. So January 1st starts with a stellium. It says here, what is a stellium? Stellium is a bundle of 3 or more planets in the birth chart. They combine to form a kind of superplanet acting as one force. In this case, the Sun, Mercury, Venus, and Jupiter join forces in Capricorn to start this new year and new decade on a very ambitious note, day 1. So that happened first of the year. Then, as I said, you had Pluto and Saturn conjunct January 12th. 14 days later, we had Kobe-Da. We also had Mars join Jupiter and Saturn and Pluto in Capricorn on February 16th, 2000, and that lasted until March 30th. And if you remember, from March 1st, to basically the end of March, we had over 186,000 corona cases. So, it's going to be like I showed you guys before, when you start looking at these conjunctions, and anytime Mars is involved, it's going to be a problem unless, some of the degrees or the distances and such is some type of, aid or help with Mars, but a lot of times it's not. Mars usually symbols a problem. So we had also in May 25th, you had Mars, Jupiter, and Pluto and Saturn synod. That lasted until about June the 11th. Remember, George Floyd was killed May 25th. And it just so happened that May 25th is what? Gemini. Gemini is what? The twins. And George Floyd was killed where? Minnesota, the Twin Cities. You heard Stephen Jackson saying that they call him his twin. He's my twin. It happened on 33rd Street. 846, the 8 minutes 46 seconds, the time that he was on his neck, 9. And this is when, that week, or a week prior, but I believe it was that week when the astrologers called it the most effed up week, of the year, or the most effed up week in astrology. It says here, astrologers have long been predicting that 2020 would be a big year, intense, brutal, full of large-scale world-shaking change. Most agreed that the biggest single planetary event of the year would be January's Saturn-Pluto conjunction, a rare meeting of 2 of the solar system's most intense and most powerful planets, bringing with it major changes in the structures our society is built on. So while January may have held the marquee event of the year on a grand scale, on a personal level, this week might feel as intense, if not more so. Already this month, there's been a lot happening astrologically. Last week ushered in a new cycle of eclipses, which are associated with dramatic change and turning points. And on top of that, there was a full moon in Scorpio, a moon that can be relied on to drudge up and illuminate intense and previously hidden emotions. This week offers even more drastic change. On Sunday night, Saturn stationed retrograde. On Monday, Mercury entered Gemini. Late on Tuesday night, Mars enters Pisces and Venus stations retrograde. On Thursday, Jupiter stations retrograde. So you had 3 planets go retrograde in that week. It is not clear. This is an uncommonly large volume of astrological actions to be compressed into a span of a single week. But what specifically does all this change mean for us? And we've seen during all that what happened. We had the killing of George Floyd, and then we had, this astrological events happen. And around the same time, we had, the marches, the protests, and then the riots, of course, and then everything we've been seeing since then. TV's going crazy, kissing black people ass, and all this racial tension, even more so. And then so much stuff is coming up. Congress has been at a lot of different things involving the people, whether it be, more money, more money for stimulus, more money for unemployment. We have all these laws that need to be changed as far as what's happening with police and all the shootings and everything like that. They're talking about reparations for descendants of slaves, and it's a lot going on. And this is what this stuff's supposed to represent, social change. Everything that we're seeing and have been seeing is about what's happening with this astrology and these planets. And it's going to be easy for people to look at it and say, it's normal stuff that's been happening, since I can remember. We've been seeing this stuff since the 60s. Now, we've all been hearing, end of the world stuff. Not saying it's the end of the world, but we've been hearing this stuff for a long time. And then we look up and it's just the norm. But you guys can feel this time is something different about this time. This time is not the same as the times before, and that's for a reason, because this time it's real. This time shit is going to happen. Things are going to change, and that all corresponds with everything we've been seeing with Corona, everything we've been seeing with, the marchings and the protests, everything I've been telling you guys about 5G. Everything is all coming together as it's supposed to come together, just like they planned it to. So you guys can be skeptical, but you got to understand, one, if you're not into astrology, you're not going to get this. But it's very easy for you guys to see what's happening out there. Right now, Jupiter and Saturn can be seen with the naked eye at certain times. This right here is in fact a picture from July 4th that just passed. There you have Jupiter, there you have Saturn. That bright light is not the sun, it's the moon. And this is through night vision. This is from a friend of mine that basically who posted in the forum, to give us this shot in Texas so we can see exactly what's taking place here. And you guys who are astrologers, you guys have already been seeing this. It's hard to see it from here in Vegas, of course. But a lot of people have already been posting pictures, and you guys can just Google and find the pictures of people posting the actual sightings of Jupiter and Saturn. And it's a lot of stuff that's been taking place. This is the time for astrology. Everybody is up in arms. Everybody is ready. Everybody is worried. A lot of people are real optimistic. A lot of people are real scared about what's coming and what could possibly happen. And like I said, so many different things that comes into play when we're talking about the energies of these planets and how they're going to be used and who is going to be using them. And it's one of the reasons why they keep us where we are, so we don't ever realize what this stuff is about and collectively tap into the energies that exist. So they gave us everything that we have. They gave us all this stuff, and we've been following it instead of following what we should be following. We're not following the real God. You understand what I'm saying? We are breaking the first commandment by not following the real God. We are following the God they gave us while they follow the real power. So we can always be beaten because we're not following what we're supposed to follow. So you're going to have the religious people saying this is the time for you to come back to God, and this is God calling the world to come back to him. And this is all metaphorical for you to understand what it's talking about coming back to God, meaning coming back to your ancient ancestral understanding of the universe and the stars and the planets and the energies that they put out and represent, tapping into that, having actual power. As I told you guys in the video on 4th of July, Farrakhan gave his speech. It's the reason why I put that video out as well when I did, for that reason, to get the truth out and the understanding out, whether you like it or not. But Farrakhan gave his speech, and remember, he showed that plane in the sky for a reason, to get you guys to understand esoterically, which I'll touch on in a second, what's all about. And you heard what he said, and you heard his prayer. And I'm gonna get into what that really means at the end of this, so you can understand basically what he's talking about. But it's a lot of people that's going to be lost in all this. But what's going to happen, no matter what it is going to lead to, the age of Aquarius and the outcome that they wanted to lead to. So what does it all mean going forward? So we're in July, a lot is going on. you have Mars in Aries right now. And you have to understand Mars is in Aries. And Mars is going to be in Aries until January 5th, 2021. But September 9th, that's 9/9, September 9th of this year, 2020, Mars is going to go retrograde in Aries. And, the history of Mars going retrograde is a lot. But the last time Mars went retrograde in Aries was in 1988. And a lot of stuff happened in 1988 that's really, really, important for us to understand, especially during this time and the stuff we're talking about. So you had Congress giving Japanese Americans $20,000 each for World War II, those internment camps. They got $20,000 each, the people that was alive that was in those internment camps during that time. Reparations, you can call it. Hertz paid $23 million. It was $23 million in a consumer fraud case. There was also police reform in the NYPD because of the Tompkins Square Park police riot. And when you understand that time is dealing with exactly a lot of the things that we're dealing with today. We're still talking about reparations. We're talking about police reform. We're talking about a lot of stuff that's happened around that time. And you got to understand, one, it's going to go retrograde until November 13th, and we got a presidential election on the 3rd. So we're going to have Mars retrograde in Aries through the presidential election and all that time. So we got to look at that and see what's going to happen around this time. So also we're going to have October the 13th, Mars is going to be in opposition. It says some 5 months from now, on October 13th, 2020, the Earth will swing between the Sun and Mars in turn will beam at its brightest, best in Earth's sky for the year. This event is called opposition by astronomers. On October 13th, 2020, Mars will be a whopping 16 times brighter than it appears on May 14th. In fact, from October 1st to 30, 2020, Mars will actually replace Jupiter as the fourth brightest celestial object to light up the heavens after the Sun, Moon, and Venus, respectively. By the way, Jupiter's opposition will come only 2 months from now on July 14th, 2020. Then Jupiter will shine at its brightest in Earth's sky for the year. On July 14th, I think they meant 2020, Jupiter will be about 1.2 times brighter than it appears on May 14th, 2020. Thus, the brightness of Mars changes precipitously while that of Jupiter remains close to constant. That's because the percentage of change in the Earth-Mars distance is large, whereas the percentage of change in the Earth-Jupiter distance remains rather small. Then we have on December 21st, 2020, what is called the Great Conjunction, which is a conjunction of Saturn, Jupiter, with Pluto and Capricorn. So it says, a fundamental principle to keep in mind throughout our 2020 societal reset is that we are impelled to claim a greater wisdom through the deconstruction of long-established societal structures and consciousness. We will be impelled to mobilize and expand upon the wisdom we claim as we emerge into the new Jupiter-Saturn 20-year cycle in 2021 and enter the great transformation occurring throughout the new decade. And it lists the forces, which I explained to you guys before. It says here, Jupiter is the bringer of grand plans, while Saturn works with the difficulties of making those grand plans a concrete reality. Jupiter is the enthusiastic ideas person. Saturn sets the course to get there and then makes sure that course is followed with no skip steps. So the grand plans planet and the making it a concrete reality planet come together as we close out 2020 and move into the 6th planet Aquarius stellium, which I'll get into in a second, and Aquarius new moon in February 2021. This is another indicator of big long-term shifts and advancements in the culture that are initiated in late 2020 and early 2021. Jupiter and Saturn also formed a conjunction at 25 degrees Capricorn on February 18th, 1961, the year before the historic Aquarius new moon total solar eclipse within 7 planet stellium in February 1962, which, if you guys look here, a lot of stuff happened in 1962. We had all those reports of UFOs. We had civil rights issues. We had the Soviet Union and America, of course, testing nuclear weapons. So this has to do with Aquarius, which Uranus rules Aquarius, uranium, as you guys have heard. And it's all about nuclear. They was calling this basically the end times then, with all the testing of the nuclear weaponry and everything like that. But a lot happened during that time. So that major big conjunction in December is going to bring us into the new year with the dawning of the age of Aquarius, the beginning of the age of Aquarius, which will be January 20, 2021. Also on that day, remember, January 20, 2021, the new president, whoever it may be, is going to be sworn in. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens then and what all that is going to be about. So then you'll have, of course, as I said, in February, from February 1st, I believe, to the 18th, you're going to have this once in a freaking million year, whatever, stellium, in Aquarius. Stellium in Aquarius, square Mars, and Uranus, February 2021. The Sun, Venus, Mercury, Jupiter, and Saturn will be conjunct in Aquarius from February 1st through the 18th, 2021. This stellium is unusual on a number of levels. I'm just going to skip down here real quick. It says the energy will be enhanced for good or ill by the square from Aquarius ruler Uranus. Uranus is unpredictable. You might look at this and predict a revolution. You may get the exact opposite. There's really no telling how this will play out, but disruption is a given. The disruption might be widespread or contained. Seeing as I hate being wrong, I'm not going to call this. There are so many questions. Will the internet, Aquarius, which Aquarius is water or current, dealing with electricity and air, it's an air sign. So you have, electricity, and you have air, which would be Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. This is going to be very, very prominent in this new age. So will internet Aquarius block or defend Saturn? Will individuals detach, unplug, and rebel against technology and tracking? Because that's going to be a big deal, as I explained with 5G. Will values, Venus, change Aquarius? Will violence, Mars, erupt? Or will Mars in Taurus stay at home and eat pie instead? I can say with confidence the effect on all of the fixed signs, which Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius, will be profound. The more planets you have in these signs, the more change you expect. As for everyone else, the house or houses in your chart where the stellium lands will be electrified in many ways you've never experienced before. So we gotta look at everything. Look at everything that, so much I left out, so much to understand, so much I wish I can get into. But when you guys start looking into this, you'll see it for yourself. It's right there. And there's a lot of stuff that's been giving us clues. There's a lot of reasons why a lot of people are saying a lot of things. As I said, one of the reasons why I wanted to do this video is to get you guys into the right understanding, because a lot of this stuff is going to completely fit in with the Bible, and it's going to scare a lot of people and misdirect a lot of people. You have to understand in Revelations, when it's talking about Jesus and everything like that, it's talking about the zodiac. All that is about the zodiac and understanding Jesus holding the zodiac or controlling the zodiac, which would be the sun controlling everything that's going on, or amplifying or empowering everything that's happening in the zodiac. Nothing to do with, what it's talking about. So you got to look at that. A lot of people was talking about aliens because they remember the 2012 so-called Illuminati Olympics. It's aliens. They were showing in the commercials, aliens coming. A lot of people thought aliens was going to come that year and so on and so forth. But when people started to understand that 2012 basically just marked 9 years until the real age of Aquarius, then people are pointing to that, coming next year. So there's a lot of things that people have been looking into and talking about. You have a whole group of hippie people that's just like on some, new age of Aquarius, man, 2021, and things are going to be groovy and fine and excellent. Then you have more people that's worried and scared because they look at the past and they see things that have happened when these planets have come together and the wars and so on and so forth, especially since you take into the fact that you had, the last time this happened, you had a period of years from 1914 up into the 60s, where it's just so much happened. I mean, you have to think about that time. World War I, World War II, civil rights, all the assassinations, the discriminations, so much hatred and pain, and there was Jim Crow. So much happened during this time. Freaking Black Wall Street. So much happened during this gap from 1914 up to the 60s. It was a lot that happened on this, in just America alone, let alone the planet. So much destruction. You had the Great Depression, stock market crash. So much happened in that time frame. So you got to think about that. And if that was a time frame for them to get to a certain point, and then now that time frame is going to be shortened to from now until next year, what are they going to do? But as I said, there's so many other planetary conjunctions and oppositions and things that's going to happen for them to fulfill or use their energy to fulfill what they want to fulfill. So we got to think about that as well, and just look at everything and be very cautious but very optimistic, because as I said, these signs flip, change, and it's hard to predict. You got to really be sitting there and really be into this to understand which way could it possibly go. I understand they've been using this for a long time. They know how to work it. They know how to put numerology with everything. I'm talking about people's birth dates and everything like that. They can figure out, using this stuff, who's going to win games, who's going to win the Super Bowl. They know, they understand. This is how people think it's rigged, but it's not. You cannot rig somebody shooting the ball into a court. You can't rig a person throwing a ball and that person catching it. You can somehow influence the referees, but it's still plays that have to be made. These people know. They know what's going to happen. They know. They setting the stage. They're controlling the energy. They can put things in motion, using the energy to set about the change that they want to have. This Saturn, Pluto, this Pluto energy, this time of Aquarius has to do with karma. It has to do with, getting your comeuppance. And nobody is due more for their comeuppance than these Europeans, and we know this. And we're seeing what's happening so far. We're seeing them basically get fed, their history and the way they have been. You can't for so long do so much evil on this planet and it not come back on you. You can do so under universal law, but when the time change, when the age change, the energy changes. This is the energy that we have never experienced before in our lifetimes. None of us. They have never experienced or witnessed this energy that's coming, but they know about it. And they know it's going to bring about change, and they're not going to be able to do what they have been doing, because the consciousness of the collective energies of people here is going to change. It's going to shift. It's going to be different. So we are today seeing through all the bullshit. We can point and see when it's a scam now. We can smell that religion is bullshit, and we can see what's happening with everything that they're doing, and they can't scam us really no more. And it's only a matter of time before that knowledge spreads to everybody, and it's just going to be known it's some bullshit, and they know it's coming. It's one of the reasons why they put in the Bible that the time will come when this stuff will happen, because they knew knowledge will increase, and we will be past, this stupid bullshit of this, children's stories. So it's here. It's here. Aquarius is coming, and they know that time is coming, so they want to be ahead of it. They want to control the energy like they've been controlling it. And if that means, which white America will hate, if that means joining hands with Black America, putting them in higher positions, giving us reparations, giving us the fair treatment and everything that they're supposed to give us, then that's what's going to have to happen. But that's me being optimistic and looking at the situation. But we got to be real. And I don't trust these bastards. I don't trust them one motherfucking bit based on the history, how sneaky these people are. So you're going to have a lot of people that's going to have that idea that maybe things are going to get better. Me personally, I think that they are looking for control and controlling the energies that's coming and being in control of the direction that we go. And it's things that they are doing that's telling us this. We know, one, they've been preparing for this epidemic for a while. They had to test for all of the H1N1s and the SARS and the Ebola, and everything was just a test to see how things go. So when this happened, they can say, I told you so. We need to have this. If you pay attention, a lot of places is not taking cash. Been to a couple stores now, not taking cash. And thinking it was a Target thing or, just a one store thing, but the more and more stores I go to, they're not taking cash right now. They're amping up the whole thing with Corona. You're seeing they're taking more and more stupid measures, and this is going to be leading to them getting rid of, cash, paper money. And they're going to say it's because of the virus and the spread of the virus, but then you have to think about things like, casinos, and think about, if that's the case, any type of human interaction, period, if we're worried about this virus. So I think we're going to be in store for a long period of this coronavirus nonsense, and it's going to lead to them getting rid of the paper money as a first step to overall possible collapse if this happens for a long time, and they have to, say they have to push all this money into the economy and everything in order for people to, in order for this stuff to be fixed or rectified. So we got to look at that. They're getting rid of this paper money, and it's going to lead to no more paper money. They want more control, so we're going to see so many different things happening that's going to take away more and more freedoms with this whole thing with Corona. And you could just see the direction that it's going, that this is what they want to do. It's looking more and more likely, and it's going to be the most stupidest thing, easy to understand. Whenever I see people, post stuff online really conforming to, no, not going outside. Yeah, everybody's saying it, don't go outside, don't go outside, don't go outside. And I was telling you guys not to go outside as well, but because I knew what they were spraying. But the fact that a lot of people jumped on board with exactly what they were saying and not putting out right knowledge, or the truth, tells you that a lot of people just going to jump on board and willingly give away their freedoms. So, what they're going to cause to happen is going to be, crazy, and it's going to be like nothing we've never seen before. And as I said, it's coming. Writing is on the wall. You can see it. You can see what's getting ready to happen, and it's easy for me to see. Looking at all this stuff, it's going to be a major change. And unless people wake up and see what they get ready to do, it's the only way, we can stop them. And I believe, just having the conscious understanding of what this is collectively, we can change things. But when you got so many people not willing to even, take a listen to the truth, we in for a bunch of bullshit. It's going to be crazy. So what I want for you guys to do is this. First of all, don't trust these bastards. I don't care how good shit look. Don't trust them. I don't trust them. So we are definitely, it looks like, going to be going back into quarantine, and Corona's going to be coming back. So you guys now, if I were you, I would make sure you got about a month's supply of water and food, that's perishable, that, at any moment you can use and have, just in case, they shut down everything. Because to me now, okay, we done tried this, quarantine for a little bit, everybody came back out. Now we're going to have to do mandatory, lockdown. Numbers is going crazy. It's stupid. So the vaccine, everything they're trying to push is, and we'll get into that in another video, it's all coming to fruition, and it's going to be a big change, something major. This is only the beginning. Something major is coming. It. It's coming. So what that's going to be is going to change the world. It's going to change us, and we got to be ready for that. But in the meantime, the little stuff that you can do, you should do. That's one of them. And just be ready, and, be prepared, be knowledgeable. And as I said, I'll continue to put out information, to you guys to grab. If you are a lifetime member on Merkaba Academy, there'll be stuff coming to that. The app is coming to make it easier. But, it's a lot to think about. And it's a lot that I put in this video that, you guys probably ain't realized yet. You might have to watch again. But the videos that's coming is going to help bring all this home even more. But this one had to get put out, and everybody who has it is going to understand the videos a lot more. It will be gone in 9 days. So I appreciate you guys getting it, and I appreciate you guys taking the time to watch, purchase, support, and all that. And I will see you guys next video.